All right, let's get right into it. We're going to unpack a really confusing and honestly pretty troubling paradox that's happening right now in the UK economy. It's this idea that for more and more people, having a job, well, it just doesn't mean you're safe from poverty anymore. You've heard this a million times, right? It's been the go-to line for governments for decades. And it seems to make perfect sense. You get a job, you earn your own money, you'll be all right. But is it really that simple? Because if it were, how do you explain the huge number of working families who are just struggling to keep their heads above water? The reality, when you look at the data, is a whole lot more complicated. Take a look at this number, 68%. Just let that sink in for a second. This statistic comes from the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, and honestly, it completely flips our whole understanding of poverty on its head. That's what that 68% means. The majority of people in poverty aren't in households with no one working. They're in households where someone is working for the first time ever. This is what we're talking about when we say the working poor paradox. So what on earth is going on? Well, to really get it, we have to start looking beyond just one person's paycheck. We've got to see the bigger picture, because the answer is not as simple as just people aren't paid enough. And this, right here, is the absolute key. In-work poverty isn't an individual problem, it's a household issue. It's all about the total money coming in versus the total cost of what everyone under that roof actually needs to live. So let's just pause for a second and make this super clear. Low pay, that's about one person's hourly wage. In-work poverty, that's about the entire household's financial health. They're connected, for sure, but they are not the same thing. Not at all. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because this busts a huge myth. Most people who are technically low paid aren't actually in poverty. Why? Well, often they live with someone else who earns more, so the household income is okay. And get this, less than half of households in working poverty even have a low-paid worker. That tells you something else is pushing them into the red. So, if it's not just low pay, then what is it? Well, all the research points to this set of massive outside pressures that are basically putting household budgets in a vice grip like never before. And you can see those pressures right here. You've got housing costs, especially renting, that are just through the roof. Then there's the rising cost of everything else: food, gas, electricity. On top of that, the way people work has changed. These insecure zero-hour contracts make it impossible to plan. And for parents, the insane cost of childcare can basically wipe out a whole salary. Okay, so these pressures are out there, but they don't hit everyone the same. The data shows us some really clear patterns. We can see exactly who is most vulnerable, who is most likely to fall into this trap. Let's take a look. The number of people earning in a household is just massive. Look at this. If you're in a single earner household, you have a 34% risk of being in poverty, a 1 in 3 chance. But add a second worker, that risk drops all the way down to 9%. A second income isn't a luxury anymore. It's become a lifeline. And here is the housing trap, clear as day. If you rent, your risk of in-work poverty is dramatically higher than for homeowners. And as more and more people can't afford to buy, they're pushed into the private rental market, which probably means this problem is only going to get worse. And the data also points to other groups that are really feeling the squeeze. Larger families, single-parent households, and people from some ethnic minority backgrounds. They often face this kind of double whammy of lower average incomes and higher costs, which just pushes their risk way up. But behind all these statistics and charts, we have to remember, these are real people's lives. The numbers tell us what's happening, but it's the personal stories that tell us what it actually feels like to be stuck in this situation. This quote from Hazel, wow. It's just so painfully accurate, isn't it? That feeling of running and running as fast as you can, but getting absolutely nowhere. You're doing everything you're supposed to do, you're working hard, but you're trapped, and you can't see a way out. And Mel's words here, they really get to the massive emotional weight of it all, the shame. There's this feeling that if you have a job, you're supposed to be okay. So when you're not, it becomes this secret you have to hide, which can be incredibly isolating. So, if we boil this all down, the single most important thing to remember is this. In-work poverty isn't just about a wage, it's a complex household problem. It's about how many people are earning, how secure that work is, and how hard they're being squeezed by outside costs that just keep going up. And that brings us right back to that fundamental question. That old promise that a job is your ticket out of poverty. For millions of people, it's just not true anymore. And that leaves us with a really tough challenge to think about. When a job isn't enough, what is?